The Agada says, Chacham mahu oimer, a wise boy, what does he say? He asks, Moha'edois v'hachukim v'hamishpotim asher tzivo Hashem Elokeinu eschem. What are the testimonies, the laws, and the logical laws that God, our Lord, has commanded you? So what do we respond to this query of the wise boy? We tell him like the laws of the Korban Pesach, after the Korban Pesach, you cannot have dessert. The question that the wise boy asks, and in the response that we respond to him, the commentators of the Haggadah ask the following question: why did we choose from all the laws of the Pesach, specifically the halacha, the law of not having dessert after the Korban Pesach? The wise boy asks and wants to know concerning all the laws which concern the Pesach, whether those that are testimony, that even though we wouldn't understand them on our own, but once we are told about them, they seem to make sense, or the chukim, those laws that we, even after we are told about them, they still don't seem to make sense, and we just follow them because God told us to, and mishpatim, which are the laws that even if God didn't tell us about them, we would realize them on our own since they're so logical. So we had to respond and explain many laws and according to the order of the night. Not one law, and specifically the last one that we're holding already after the Korban Pesach, the law that after the Pesach we cannot have desserts. Also, it is not understood what is in general the question of the wise boy. If he's such that the Torah calls him with the name Chacham, wise, so he knows himself the laws. Since he knows the laws of the Torah, what is the meaning of his question, of his query? What are the testimonies, and laws, and logical laws that the Eibishter has commanded us? One could have explained that the order, since the order of the night of Pesach is in a manner of question and an answer, therefore the law is that one does not have a son, so his wife has to ask him, and if he doesn't have a wife, he has to ask himself, Man nishtana, why it is different, the night of Pesach from all other nights of the year. So therefore we could have explained the question of the wise boy, that although he is wise and he knows the Torah, nevertheless he has to ask because that is the order. So it is the order of the night of Pesach. Yet it is understood that since the Torah presents the general questions and responses in 4 categories of 4 boys, and the highest category of them is the wise one, so in his question, what are the testimonies, etc., it is denoted the highest category of questions, specifically according to what is explained in the writings of the Arizal. The 4 boys correspond to the 4 spiritual worlds of Atzilus emanation, Bria creation, Yetzirah formation, and Asiya completion. And the Chacham, the wise boy, corresponds to emanation, to the world that has been emanated from God. So it is certain that in the question of the wise one, it is denoted the highest category of question that can only be. And the response on the question of the wise boy response is an answer to these questions. So it is not understood. A, what is the special wisdom and the depth of the question? What is the testimonies, etc., that God our Lord has commanded you. This can ask also such a person that has learned very little and has a very little knowledge in the mitzvahs of the Torah. B, what is the depth of the response that we do not have afikoymen, we do not have dessert after Pesach? C, it is an explicit Mishnah, and anybody who reaches the age of 10, he's a Ben Eser, so he's already Le Mishnah. As the Mishnah tells us that Ben Eser Le Mishnah, that when a person is 10 years old, you should start studying Mishnah. So anybody who just learned some Mishnayos knows the law of Ein Maftirin, that you cannot have dessert after the Korban Pesach. As mentioned above, the wise boy corresponds to Atzilus. In the world of Atzilus, it is Bittul B'Metzias. One's existence is totally nullified. When it comes to Bittul, to nullification towards the Eibishter, there's two types of Bittul. One is called Bittul Hayesh. His ego exists. However, he is putting aside his ego. He is nullifying his ego because he knows there's a bigger ego. There's the ultimate entity of the Eibishter, of the one above. And he puts aside his ego for the Eibishter, but his ego exists. However, Bittul B'Metzias means that he doesn't have an ego in the first place, which is the concept of Chochmah, Koyachma, the power of what? It is the power of nullification which shines in Atzilus. And the one who holds by Bittul B'Metzias, he is called the Chacham. Due to Bittul B'Metzias. When one is totally not an entity for himself, but totally nullified and devoted to the God. So the fulfillment of all mitzvahs is on the same manner. When one feels his own entity, then there are differences in mitzvahs. The mitzvahs that we know their reason, and we understand them, in them we have a greater pleasure than in the mitzvahs which we fulfill out of accepting the yoke of God. Because a law I have engraved, a decree I have decreed. And therefore, there's a room to divide the mitzvahs in three categories. Laws which are not understood in the intellect. Testimony, which are those mitzvahs that we would not have realized on our own, but once we were commanded them, yes, they seem to make sense. They're a testimony on the existence and unity of God. And laws that are so logical that if God didn't tell us, then we would have realized them on our own. Chukim are laws that have totally no place in intellect. Eidus has an area in intellect. Alone, one would indeed not have understood that one has to do them. However, after the Torah commanded us on the Eidus, they have an area in intellect. Mishpatim are such commandments that the intellect itself commands them, as our rabbis of blessed memories statement. Had Torah, God forbid, not been given, would have learned modesty from a cat, and not to steal we would have learned from an ant. Because an ant is very particular about gathering its own food and not stealing from a different ant. However, due to the Bittul B'Metzias, total nullification of one's entity, of Chochmah, Atzilus, emanation, there's absolutely no difference whether one understands or he doesn't understand. All mitzvahs one fulfills due to the fact that God commanded them. And also, we have then a delight, pleasure in all mitzvahs, even in the mitzvahs which have no area in intellect. We have in them the greatest pleasure, knowing that this is the will, the supreme will, as it is known. That had we only been commanded from the Eibishter, from the one above, to chop wood, we would have done it with the same vitality as by fulfilling the commandment of putting on tefillin, etc. And this is the question of the wise one. What is the difference of categories of edus and chukim and mishpatim that God our Lord has commanded you? Why do we separate the mitzvahs in separate categories? Due to the nullification of bittul b'metzias, nullification of the ego of Chochmah. There shouldn't be any differences. In all mitzvahs, there's only one point: fulfillment of the supreme will. Even more than that, the question of the Chacham, it is not only on edus and mishpatim. Why are they separated from chukim? Just the question is also on chukim themselves. Due to the bittul b'metzias of Atzilis, it is not shaykh the whole concept of a chukim. What is the meaning of the word chukim? As our rabbis of blessed memory, the statement of our rabbis of blessed memory, chukah chokakti, a law I have engraved, gezeidah gazarti, a decree I have decreed, ve'ein lecha reshus laharer achareo. You have no permission to think about it. Why did God place on us such decrees? This can be said only by such an entity that feels some entity other than the master. So we have to tell him that you have no permission to think after it. That he should do it with Kabbalah's oil, with accepting the yoke of God. However, when he is totally nullified, besides for the entity of the master, there's nothing else. So just like it doesn't make sense to command the master himself that he shouldn't think after his decree. So likewise, doesn't make sense to command the servant who stands with an ultimate nullification, and his whole entity is only that of the master. Such a servant, he fulfills the commandment of the master not in a manner of chukah, in a manner of accepting the yoke. Just this fulfillment comes in an automatic way due to the fact that he is nullified and totally united with the master. And this is the interpretation of Chacham Mahu Omer, etc. The neshama of every yid, in its essential essence, is pure. It is the level of Atzilus, emanation. Just it descended down here through the worlds of Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya, creation, formation, and completion, till it embodied itself in a physical body. So the purity of the neshama asks, why does the fulfillment of mitzvahs have to be in a manner of division amongst edus, chukim, and mishpatim? That God has commanded you. This division that exists by you, those who were created by the worlds of Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya, due to us, due to the root of the neshama, so the fulfillment of mitzvahs is in a much higher manner. All in yonim are in a eifen of ma. What? Bittul b'metzias, nullification of the entity. Even deeper, the word ma goes also in the question of the chacham. The goal of Atzilus is not to remain where it is, Atzilus, but to arrive to higher than Atzilus And over there, the concept of ma, of nullification of the entity, is also not shaykh. It also doesn't belong, because the description, bittul b'metzias, nullifying the entity, shows that there is a metzias, there's an entity that nullifies itself. Higher than Atzilus, where the Chacham strives to reach. So the concept of Ma also doesn't belong. Therefore, the Chacham asks his Shaila even on the level of Ma, because he wants to lift himself up from this level. On this comes the answer, the response. You should also tell him like the laws of Pesach. Why is the Yom Tov called Pesach? Pesach means to skip, to jump over, not with a level. Usually when a person ascends from one level to another level, he goes step by step. Dilug means to jump over this level. So it was the revelation of godliness in the night of Pesach. Niglo aleim melech malchei amochim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Eibishter, the one above, when his glory and in his self revealed himself, and he is higher from all four worlds of Atzilus, Bria, Yetzirah, Asiyah, which is also denoted in the four languages we say in the Haggadah when we mention that it is the Eibishter, we say V'loi Malach, V'loi Sorov, V'loi Shaliach, V'loi Acher, not an angel, not a burning angel, not a messenger, and not another, which corresponds to these four worlds. Where did this revelation come down? In Mitzrayim, Ervas Ha'aretz, in Egypt, which was the abomination of the land. A land which is full with idols, which this is much lower, not only from Atzilus, the place of the Chacham, but even from Asiyah, the place of the Rasha. Because we're talking over here not about a regular wicked person, but we're talking about a Jewish Rasha. And a Yid, even a Rasha Gamor, a complete Rasha, by him also the Neshama exists in a level of Makif. As the famous statement of Chazal, that Ganva Pumachtarta Rachmanakarya, a thief who's digging a tunnel under somebody's house or under a bank in order to steal some money, at the same time he's asking that God should help him, that he should be successful, in which the question arises, either you believe in God. So if you believe in God, so you realize that God can give you all the money that you really need without you having to resort to stealing. Or you don't believe in God, so why asking God to help you? Which brings out the point that one can believe in God in a very superficial manner. So in Russia also the Neshama shines, but it doesn't shine in a revealed manner, in a manner that penetrates his being, but in a superficial, that allows all the other evil to exist. And even the body of a Rasha, which is from Klippa, it's from Klippas Noiga. It is from a peel which the light of the Eibishter shines, so it's mixed evil and good. But in Egypt, it's Shalish Klippas Atmeis Legamri. It is the three peels that are totally defiled, in which Tumah is full of idols, which is the Tumah of Avodah Zarah, of a service, a foreign service, which weighs over with the keeping away of Avodah Zarah, weighs over against all the mitzvahs. So it is understood that bringing down the very essence of God, the land full of idols, it is in the manner of jumping over, totally not a manner of step by step. So one can think, since it is a concept of skipping, so there doesn't have to be an order in this. because order is the opposite of skipping. On this, the response is ki hilchos haPesach. Even in Korban Pesach, through which one draw down the level of Pesach Havaya, the skipping over above the concept of levels. Even in this, there were specific halachas, and after what a seder and hadroga, al tikrei halichos el halachos. In other words, halachos are ways to how godliness descends from above below and from below above, many, many levels. Taking the Korban Pesach on the 10th day of Nisan and slaughtering it, and bringing it up as a sacrifice and eating it, with all their details of laws in a very arranged order. Because the supreme will is that also the concepts of above limitation should come down in measurement and limitation. And this is the response on the question of the Chacham. We need this division of Eidos, Chukim, and Mishpatim. Although the service has to be due to the essence of the neshama, which is above of any division, because the supreme goal is that also this service of the essence of the neshama, how it's united with the essence of the Eibishter, which is above division, has to be brought down in the division of a arranged avoida, Eidos, Chukim, Mishpatim. The explanation on this is a maftirin achar Pesach afikoyim. The Korban Pesach we have to eat at the end of the entire meal, once a person is almost full. In order, this eating should be with pleasure and importance. And after the eating of the Pesach, one cannot eat any other food. In order, it should not become by him nullified the taste of the Korban Pesach. So we see in this two opposites. The eating of the Pesach has to be not in order to satisfy his hunger. Enough that he shouldn't be lacking anymore. And yet, there has to be in this a taste and a pleasure. This means that the pleasure of eating the Korban Pesach is not from the fact that what he is lacking becomes filled. Just from a higher concept, ashirus, richness. Higher from the things that his entity demands. Higher from his powers. And yet he has in this pleasure. His pleasure and hanoah is a thing which is totally higher from his entity. This means that also the connection of the essence of the neshama with the essence of the Eibishter, the way it is higher from individual powers, one has to bring down and draw down in the inner powers, beginning with the power of intellect, which therefore demands that the fulfillment of the mitzvahs should be not only in a manner of Eidos and Chukim, but also in a manner of Mishpatim. He should bring you down in his intellect and have in this a taste and a pleasure. And therefore, one of the main avodas of the Korban Pesach is to eat the Pesach. Bringing in the Pesach and dilu, the skipping over in a innermost aspect. It should become blood and flesh like his flesh. And he should have in this a taste. And afterwards, he shouldn't eat any other food in order. The taste of the Korban Pesach should not be nullified in his mouth. That the Pesach, which is above the grasp of the intellect, and the same is also now, when instead of the Korban Pesach we eat matzah, which is food of belief, of faith, emunah, faith, which is above intellect, has to be with a tam, with a taste and a geschmack and a pleasure.